This is the Hope Not Nope podcast,
where we answer your questions and share inspirational stories to fill your soul with hope.
Our mission is to empower hope to those who have been plagued by nope.
I'm Dr. Dylan Caswell.
And I'm Brandy.
And we're here to bring you out of the nope and into hope.
Welcome back to the next episode of the Hope Not Nope podcast. Brandy and Dylan here. We're excited to be with you. At the beginning of every single episode, we share our hope stories, which are inspiring moments that we've encountered with different people or different situations throughout our life recently. And so Dylan's going to kick off this episode with a hope story from him.
My hope story is the cocktail party effect.
What is this?
Yeah. It's not from drinking too many cocktails at a party, because there is an effect from that. But it's when you're at a cocktail party and it's very busy, there's a lot of noises, but you're in a conversation and your brain is able to kind of block out all the background noise and focus on the conversation that you're having at hand. It's really cool. Like the piano can be playing, what's the stand-up guitar? Cello?
The cello or the bass. Bass.
Like that can be playing. People can be talking, there can be hundreds of people, but you can hear the one person in front of you that's talking at a normal volume. It's a really cool effect that auditory researchers have found. But for me, what happened is that we were at a conference and we had a table there as a booth to promote the message of hope and the book. And I was in the bathroom and I was washing my hands and I could hear Brandy talking to people at the table as I was washing my hands. And the table, another cool thing, the table was underneath the location that I was at was a high school, and our table was underneath their high school sports hall of fame. So it was so cool of the placement there. It was a great conference. And the table wasn't directly next to the bathroom. It was on the other side of the hallway. And there was hundreds of people in this one hallway walking back and forth. Like there was a lot of noise. And the air dryer was one of those like super blower ones that like you turn it on and it sounds like an air turbine. And so that's going. And I could hear Brandy having a conversation with someone at the table. It freaked me out a little bit because people say, oh, your significant other, you can always hear them. But it was like that first moment for me that actually happened. That I was in the bathroom and there's hundreds of people between us and I can hear what she's answering, but I have no idea what the question that was asked. So it was so cool to experience that cocktail party effect with my significant other at the conference.
Did you think I was in the stall next to you at first?
I thought you were like right next to me in the hallway, like yelling into me. So I was kind of like looking around and then I was like, oh my gosh, like, no, she's at the table.
That's awesome. That makes me so excited.
And you've said it to me before of like in a busy room that you can hear my voice. Mm-hmm. And I just assumed it's because like I'm a spaz or like I have like, not that I have a low, deep voice, but that like my voice can travel. And so I figured that was the case, but I'm like, oh my gosh, no, it's just the cocktail party effect of just like being connected. Mm-hmm. And because that's what the cocktail party effect is. It's the connectedness. Mm-hmm. It's saying I'm so connected in this conversation that I'm going to intuitively block out all the other things that are happening. If you're not connected in the conversation, you're just sitting there sipping on your cocktail like, yeah, uh-huh, yeah, what? Yeah, good. But
yeah, I know there's definitely been multiple times at parties, like in friends' houses or even like, you know, at bonfires or things like that, where it's almost distracting because I'm talking to whoever I'm talking with, and Dylan could be, you know, behind me talking to someone else, but he could also be 20, 30, 40 feet away talking to someone, and I'll get distracted because I'll hear his voice, even though I'm in like a one-on-one conversation, and I can still be intentional with that person, but that is very true. Like I will hear you. I remember even when we first started dating, maybe this was a sign that we were meant to be married. But I remember when we first started dating, we were in a group of people at a fire and you were talking to one of my friends and I was, you know, on the opposite side of the fire talking to people. And I remember being able to hear your voice and just, I was amazed because my friend was asking him questions like, what's the most important virtue and things like that. And I remember like being able to hear your answers, even though I wasn't in the conversation. And that was like the first like moment of, I guess like our cocktail, what's it called?
cocktail party effect.
Yeah, the cocktail party effect with Dylan and I at the beginning of our relationship.
Yeah, the
So
connectedness. And this may break the rules, but I guess it's another hope story. But it's a very, very
little
fast
double
one
whammy.
because you brought up that like maybe like it's coming together with your significant other. And basically it's a message of it's okay to be weird because there's another weird person out there that's going to love you for being as weird as you were created to be. And if you know Brandy or myself and our past roommates will all attest to this, and my lifelong roommate as a child, my brother, he'll attest to this. We both blow our noses so awkwardly.
Or
It's
elephants.
just like the loudest noise. It's probably unnecessary, but it's just how we both blow our nose. And we were out at my parents' house, and my brother's there, and Brandy blows her nose, and my brother just goes, "No way! Like, are you serious?" So I thought Dill was the only one that blew his nose like that. You blow your nose like that? And Brandy's like, "Yeah, we're both elephants. I guess we were just elephant calling each other our whole lives until we got together."
Well, your dad said the last
My
part.
yeah,
I said that I said we were elephants, and your dad goes, "Oh, you must have been calling each other as elephants your entire life."
yeah, yeah. So it's we all got our own quirky things. We're all weird.
Yeah.
It's okay to be weird. You're gonna find your weird significant other, and you're gonna come together and realize, like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
we can be weird and authentic together.
Yeah, let's get weird.
Let's get weird. Shout out to our buddy.
Yeah. So I feel like I could just stay in those hope stories, but I do have a different hope story. And the main reason I want to share about it is because this episode is releasing right at the time that my best friend here in Syracuse is moving across the country. And I'm very sad about it. But I'm excited to share just the hope of like this friendship that I've had. And goodness, I could talk for hours about it, but specifically she's known that she's been moving for, let's say close to a year, 6 months, whatever it is. And even in the midst of knowing that she was moving, she saw the need for having intentional women community in our area in upstate New York and decided to have bi-weekly nights where local women come together and we basically hang out, chill. There's some sort of reflection. Sometimes it's scripture based, sometimes it's listening to a talk or a message from someone, sometimes it's like a poem, whatever it may be. But we have, a short reflection that's 3 to 5 minutes, and then we take 10 to 15 minutes to journal. And then if we want to share with each other, we do share. And I'm just so thankful because when people get married, typically what happens, at least that I've seen in situations, and I've heard of this trend and was kind of warned against it, is when you get married, you become so close with your spouse that you, not that you forget about your friends, but you forget to be intentional with your friends in
Mm-hmm.
your outside community because you're in this new relationship in a new way. And that was something that I was almost like warned against prior to us getting married. And it was cool because this friend that I'm talking about who's moving, she got married 2.5 months or a month and a half before we got married, and still knew that there was an intentional need for women's community. And so even though she's moving in just a couple of days, it's awesome because this women's night that's bi-weekly can continue. And I saw one girl step up, and there's people that travel 15, 30, 45 minutes to this one central location. And I was nervous that there wouldn't be a central location and I would have to start driving instead of 15 minutes, 45 minutes. But someone stepped up that actually lives maybe a quarter mile away, maybe not even that, from like this friend that's moving's house. And so now we have a new central location that people can come from all over to these like bi-weekly women's nights. But it's so life-giving. And Dylan and I talk about this often, but it's like you can have once a month or once every 2 month things, but sometimes like the once a month is just enough. Once every 2 months is like too little. Once a week is too much. And so having this like bi-weekly thing that's really life-giving, um, and intentional for like personal development, but then also like communal development has been really life-giving. So I just wanted to give a little shout out in my hope story to my one best friend who started this with another one of our friends, but to her specifically, of one, just thank you for our friendship, the many years of friendship that we've had. And we're so excited to watch you and your husband step into this new journey as you move across the country back to his hometown. And we're just so grateful for you, and thank you for your example and your witness of authentic femininity, the importance of community, the importance of lifting each other up, and really just being the best person that you can be. You are Hope, and it's such an honor to see you as Hope so often and being your friend. So I could go on forever, but I won't, because then I'll start sobbing, and I don't want to sob in the middle of the podcast because we do have questions to get to. But that's my little Hope story and a little shout out to one of my best friends.
Oh, I love that. And I want to see if I can say the word femininity.
You said it.
Femininity.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said it, and I was like, I had a very deep thought, and then I got distracted to see if I could say that word. So I said it. So now I can go to the deeper part of such a beautiful couple, such beautiful people. And if you followed our podcast and how much we talk about community, Brandy and I's first date was actually with this friend joining us to talk about community.
Yep.
And so as long as I've known Brandy, I've known this particular friend, and she just has such a special place in both of our hearts. And she's just a incredible support, and her and her husband are just such a great team together. I'm really excited to see what the future holds for them. And for anyone, I know I've gone through many cycles of friendships, not in the sense of like having a friend and dumping a friend, but having that close friend that you are sharing space with, and you're able to get together in person, and then they move, and it's devastating. And there's no one that's going to replace that friend. But we have to remember that one of the benefits of technology that we have now is that you can stay connected. You can hop on FaceTime calls with people that live on the other side of the country, other side of the world. Does it require sacrifice? Yeah, but you have to ask the question, is it worth it? And most of the times when these people have such a big impact on you, you need to keep them in your life. And there's multiple ways that you can do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Femininity.
Femininity. But also just like family and
Mhm.
community and all the things. But
Yeah.
we will move forward, because if not, I will cry. Which crying is good, but you know. Our first question is from a listener named Sophia, and she asks, is cozy cardio more effective than going to the gym or exercising outside?
Ooh, spicy question with
Mhm.
cozy cardio.
Very trendy, cozy cardio
Very
is.
trendy. So let's see if we can kind of quickly describe what cozy cardio is. It's a trend that started on TikTok that basically was trying to decrease the thought or the intimidation that you have to go to a gym and sweat and work really hard, and that it has to be this big thing to do. What cozy cardio presents is that you can light some candles, you can turn on a movie, you can use mood lighting, and then do zone 2 cardio. Zone 2 cardio is very non-intense exercise. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the opposite of high intensity interval training, but zone 2 is basically you could walk, you could bike, you could run, but it's to a intensity that you can continue to talk. Like you can carry on a conversation. Zone 2 cardio is great for recovery. Is it great for a training stimulus? It absolutely depends on the level that that person is coming into it with. So what do I love about cozy cardio? It's getting people up. It's getting people active. It's not what we do in the sense of like our performance goals of high intensity interval trainings, but we do have clients that would benefit greatly from something like cozy cardio. So to the extent, is it better or more effective than going to the gym or exercising outside? It completely depends, because cozy cardio can take place outside. I joke around that Brandy and I do cozy CrossFit, not in the sense of it's cozy when we're doing it, but it's cozy to us because we like that level of intensity. We like that level of push. And for other people that they may not consider that cozy. Is it more effective than other forms of exercise? It completely depends on if you weren't doing anything, if you were sedentary, cozy cardio is going to be extremely effective to make a difference for you. Other than that, it then becomes like, what's the goal? Because we tend to get in this idea of like cozy cardio is it's stupid. Throw it over to the side. Like there's not a time and place for a high intensity interval training all the time. But I would almost take the side or make the debate that athletes that are doing high intensity interval training would benefit from using cozy cardio as part of their recovery
Mm-hmm.
instead of always relying on ice baths or saunas. Not that they don't have a time or a place, but the intentionality of treating yourself, but doing it with active recovery could be a really great thing
Mm-hmm.
for people. So, um, a spicy question that will get different responses, but I think we're fans of anything that gets people up and moving foremost, and then after that, it becomes where are we using it in a performance program? Why are we using it in the performance program? And what are the goals that that person has?
Mm-hmm. I love that. I also think, I mean, I support everything you just said, just a different take, I guess, on how I'm going to say it. But I think of someone who needs a first step.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like cozy cardio is a great first step for some people. And then I kind of want to shout out our friends, Jason and Lauren Pack, with
Yeah.
like what they're doing. If you've never heard of them, 1010 recommend looking them up on Instagram, on their website, on YouTube, because they give exercises and programs and things like that for people who are intimidated to go to the gym. They want to make it less intimidating for people. And so I think cozy cardio is a great step. I also think that they are a good great first step, or even a second step after cozy cardio if your end goal is to continue to grow and move in
Yeah.
that way. So I do kind of want to give them a shout out, but then I also look at the other end of things when you mentioned like what if more people used cozy cardio to recover. I'm not necessarily like a let's turn on the candles and do a yoga session, but you mentioned candles and you mentioned like watching a movie, and now I have this desire of like, gosh, if we had a treadmill in our room, I would so watch a movie and just like walk on a treadmill, or I
Yeah.
would like use the bike and just like, because you can kind of it's you don't have to think if you're watching like a movie or whatever. And I know
Right.
we do like we'll bike and we'll work, but although we love our work so much, it's not cozy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can be at times when we're in our beanbag chairs, but in
Yeah.
reality, like our work isn't cozy. But if we could put on a movie and be on the bike, that would be that I wouldn't complain about that because I don't get a lot of movie time, so that would be nice as a nice little recovery. But that's just a side tangent, but
Yeah.
would be kind of cool.
Yeah. Let me throw another wrinkle into the conversation. Hopefully, not to confuse it, but just to demonstrate that it does have a time and a place, but it's dependent on, well, what is that time and place for it? Because I think we've touched on it, but let's give a concrete example of it. Cozy cardio gets you into moving, gets you up, gets you on the treadmill, taking care of yourself. Great starting point. If your goal is longevity, we know that for longevity, you need strength and you need power. And cozy cardio, not going to get you there. At the same time, in order to have strength and power and be able to adapt to those stressors, you do need recovery. You need to bring down your internal load. And if you're this stress ball that's just ready to explode, you're not going to get the gains that you would if your body was adapting to those stressors. So cozy cardio, it doesn't mean that we start with cozy cardio and then we stop it because we're going on to strength and power training. But now we do the strength and power training, but then for your recovery, let's use cozy cardio. So now it becomes a next step, the next evolution in the journey for it. We can't reach longevity without recovery. We don't need recovery if we don't face stressors. So the full picture of that is that's what we're going to work towards. But we all need to start somewhere, and making it more approachable, making it less intense, bringing down the financial cost of gym memberships, the friction of needing to get to the gym and find parking and the locker room and the judgments and all the things that go in that prevent a person from starting a fitness routine or a health routine. Like this is a great way to break those barriers down.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, like with anything, if you don't add in the next stressor, you're just going to maintain. You're not going to grow any further. So zone 2 cardio is great for recovery. But hey, at some point we might want zone 3, 4, 5
Mm-hmm.
training, and then you use that back as a recovery. So hopefully that kind of gives an example as to how we don't just say, this is worthless, stop doing this,
Mm-hmm.
but how we can use it and implement it. And if a person's like, I really love cozy cardio and I don't want to give it up, we need to respect that.
Yeah.
And we need to go, cool, let's make that part of your program, because guess what? We're on a team.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I love it. Great job. I love that. And have fun doing cozy cardio if that's you.
Yeah, I've honestly thought of like, hey, let's do like Fran 21-15-9 thrusters and pulls, but light candles around it, and see if that like helps us to not feel as bad after you do that. And I don't think that would happen, but I'm like, let's start the trend of cozy CrossFit.
Yeah.
But cozy and CrossFit do not go together
No.
unless you find peace in that type of stimulus.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is not having a candle around you during it.
Yeah, I'd be really fascinated if people say Fran gives me peace. But I'm sure there's people out there, and if that is you and you are the one that says Fran is the most peaceful workout that I can do, please DM us, because I want to meet you, because that just sounds awesome.
Right.
Because it's not us.
Yeah.
We do love it, but I wouldn't say it's calming.
No, during it, it's not calming, but we're doing it as a sense of I'm doing it now for the performance benefit that I'm going to get later,
which could be
from this, which is
calm.
then peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next question.
Yeah.
This is from Alec, and he asks, I've seen wider toe box shoes trending. What's your take on this?
All right. So my take on this is going to be pretty similar to our take on cozy cardio.
Of course. It always comes back to it depends.
It depends.
It depends.
It depends. And
but,
it has a time or a place.
Yes. But it's good that things depend, because things are not all black and white. There's a lot of gray in this world. And so it's better to like understand both sides, and that's what we're doing here. So the wider toe box shoes.
Absolutely. It's a tool. It's a tool. And knowing how to use that tool to either keep you in the game or to work on a deficiency that you have is a huge advantage. So that's part of the conversation. The other part of the conversation that we tend to not have as much is, well, what's the research say on toe and foot injuries on footwear? What is that? Because what we see on social media is people taking out the tongue, is it called the tongue? The liner of the shoe.
Yeah.
Or like cutting it open and then putting their foot on top of it and saying, look, my big toe is over this part of the shoe, which means it's cramping my foot in to be narrower. And because of that, we're going to have injury, because naturally our toes are meant to splay. And I don't disagree that naturally our toes should splay, but I do disagree with the sentiment that our footwear creates injury in our feet or in our ankles. The exception with that is if your feet are too tight or your shoes are too tight and you're getting blisters and things like that. Like, yes, okay, that's a direct relationship to it. But when we look at things like bunions, where the big toe starts to go in towards the other toes, there's different degrees of bunions, but people will say it's from wearing high heels, like one of the most narrow type of shoes that you can wear, and that footwear is what's creating the bunion. But when we look at the research, what we see is that it's not the high heel that's creating it. What's creating it is spending too much time in a plantar flex position, which is shortening the heel cord, which then is shortening and creating that toe coming in. But again, it's not the direct footwear. It's not spending time in dorsiflexion and reversing that position throughout the day. So I get it can be confusing. Well, you said the high heel doesn't create the injury. It doesn't. It's not causative. It's correlated. when it's correlated, there's other factors that are bringing it on. The other factor that's bringing it on is being in one position for too long of a period of time. Most of the time, heels were worn for 8-hour days, right? Before Crocs came out, they were worn for 8 hours days, dressing up in the office, really wear this nice footwear. 8 hours outside of the office, a lot of times people weren't working in dorsiflexion. They weren't opening up these tissues again. So this idea of the shoe creating these toe injuries when it's not a blister or skin irritation, there's not research on it. There's confirmation bias. We see it, it makes sense. We think that it's common sense. So then we go to the fallacy that because our natural tendency of our toes is to splay out, then it makes sense that we should be lifting with a wider toe box. So then we get sucked into the marketing of that we should have this. That's kind of the background story of that. Now, does that mean that we're opposed to lifters or shoes that have wider toe boxes? No. It allows you to get more strength, more training in at your feet. It gives you more orientation of your feet. It gives your sensory receptors in your feet more information, which can be helpful. But if it's a question, if you're like financially struggling and you think that, oh man, I can't keep lifting because I don't have a wide toe box shoe and the wide toe box shoe costs this amount of money, like, no, don't be afraid of it. If it's a performance goal of like, hey, I want to spend some more time on my feet, getting more sensory enrichment, getting more stability, more strength of my feet, well, okay, then the shoe might be a good option for you.
Yeah, I grew up believing that, well, I still look for shoes that are wider because I do have a wider foot, and narrow shoes do hurt my feet. Like throughout the day, it's like discomfort. But I grew up thinking like I could only wear wide shoes. And then with playing sports, and I don't know if I'm just curious, like these are kind of sub questions, but like when playing sports, especially basketball, like my dad was like, you need to have high ankle support basketball shoes or else you're going to roll your ankles. And so I always had like the higher ankle shoes, and then I look and like I'm pretty sure it's like Kobe. A lot of basketball shoes now are super low. They're not like high ankle ones. And I also grew up after my injury as a teenager and throughout most of my 20s, I believed I had to have an arch support in every single shoe or else I was going to re-stress fracture my foot. A lot of these things were told from some sort of authority that I just believed because it kind of made sense. But looking back now, the stuff I've learned, the things that I've been more educated on, a lot of it was just confirmation bias. And I can honestly say, like, I don't use those arch supports anymore because if I do use them, they actually bother my foot more. It's more discomfort than now that I'm used to not having that. You know what I mean? And so just kind of wanted to share that because I think there's a lot of things in this world that kind of make sense, and then there's like confirmation bias, but then like where is the actual research on these things? And I'm thankful that I've been able to grow and like learn more of the research for me specifically.
Can of worms opened. Can of worms opened right here, because what it comes down to is what creates injury. What we know from the research, and there's a lot of data. What do you say? Data or data?
I think data.
Data sounds more sophisticated.
Data.
There's a lot.
I don't know. People say a lot of things. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of data on this that what creates injury is load. Having too much load, not having enough variety, doing too much of the same thing for too long, or doing something too soon that your body has not been prepped for. We know that when we have load management, when we make sure that the stressors that your body's taking on, that you can adapt to those stressors. So there's the psychosocial model of how am I doing as a human being? And that allows us to adapt to these stressors. But other than that, then do we have progressive overload that's occurring? Because you can have a variety of footwear, but if you're overloading, if you're spiking your workload too much too soon, you could be barefoot, you could be in a lifter, you could be in a wide toe box, a narrow toe box, and you're setting yourself up for injury because you haven't been exposed to that threshold that your body would adapt to. The other part of this is, in a perfect world, having different shoes is a great thing. That's not the reality for everyone. There's a reality that people can only work out barefoot because they don't have means to have shoes or they don't have the resources for that. And there's the other reality that people have 20 different types of shoes
if not
if
more.
not more, that they're using. But understanding that the people that are working out barefoot because of the resources, they're not choosing to do it for a training goal. They're choosing to do it because they don't have another option. When you do have those resources for those options, the best thing to do is to understand intentionally that these different types of shoes are training different aspects of your legs, of your body. If you have more of a barefoot shoe, you're getting more force to your foot and ankle, less to your knee. If you have more of an arch support, you have more cushioning in your shoe. More of that force is now going to go to your knee or your hips. So you might be dealing with some discomfort in the feet, in the foot or ankle complex. Might not be a good time to say, let me try to PR with a barefoot shoe. Vice versa, you might be having some knee and hip discomfort. Well, it might be a good time to wear more of a minimalist shoe to get more force to go to your foot and ankle and less coming to your knee and your hip so that you can keep training as you're taking care of those other areas. So variety is good. Variety is good. And there's research in running to show that a factor aside from load management that decreased the likelihood of injury was having different styles of shoes and changing them in to have that variety. I just don't want people to get stuck in the thought that in order for them to train, they need a specific shoe in order to do that. Some of the best basketball players have played with the worst shoes on and still dominated. And then the shoe came afterwards.
Mhm.
So we have to just remind ourselves, like, what is the purpose of the shoe? And how do we know we got the right shoe for the sport that we want to do? It goes back to when you didn't buy shoes online and you had to go in the store with your parents and you put them on and you tied them up and your parents said, run around and see how fast you are in those shoes. You would lace them up, you would run, and you would go, yes, these are the shoes. These are the ones that I want. Or you do that lap and you're like, like these shoes look cool, but I'm not running in these. I'm not fast in these. Get them off my feet. Fast shoe test. That's what we should be going towards.
And I can honestly say that last summer when I bought new running shoes, we went in and I did the fast shoe test.
I have evidence. I have evidence of that saved on the phone.
I love it. All right, our last question is from a listener named Jay, and he asks, "What's more important, motivation or discipline?"
Discipline.
Is this gonna be like our was it our last episode where you go, you can't isolate the BMO, this is the blog post, and literally just says no. And then motivation versus discipline. Discipline. That's it.
Discipline.
End podcast here.
Discipline. So let's talk about it a little bit more. So I want to set the record straight with motivation. And this comes from Dr. Dale Avers, who really instilled this in us as a class, but in me. There's no such thing as unmotivated. There's always a motivation. It's just that motivation may not align with your motivation. Mm. And where this came from was working with a population, for example, that is in the hospital. They had a illness or something that happened that forced them to stay in the hospital. So we're going in to see them to see, are they able to go home? Should they go to short-term rehab facility? Are we going to use testing for that to happen? But what ends up happening is that these people have this illness, this life-changing thing that occurred. The last thing they want to do is get out of bed. So we used to have this thought of going into the room and them going, hey, we want to get you out of bed. We want to see how many steps we can take. We want to make sure you can do stairs. We just want to see, are you safe to go home? And they would go, no, I'm going to stay in bed. I don't want to do that. And we'd have to try to educate them. And we would go back and forth and it'd still end with this, no, it's not happening. So we'd come out of the room and we'd go talk to our clinical instructor or whoever and say, tried to get them to do the appointment, but they were not motivated to participate in the task. No, they weren't unmotivated. They were motivated to stay in bed. We were motivated to get them out of bed. Our goals didn't align. So there is no person that's unmotivated. It's that their motivation is different, than what we may want it to be. So that's the quick
Mm.
crash course on motivation. Why is discipline greater than motivation? Something that we typically don't say on this podcast is that something is greater than the other thing. And it deserves context that it depends on the goal. If we rely on motivation, we're not going to stay consistent in what we want to achieve. The difference between motivation and discipline is doing that task, doing that action that you may not want to do in order to get the benefit down the road. It's delayed gratification. And we talk about it in the book. How many times are you truly motivated to want to work out versus being motivated to not work out and go in and be comfortable? How many times are you truly motivated to wake up early and go to work? Versus how many times you're motivated to want to call in or take those few extra minutes in bed? Motivation is the act or the desire of wanting to do something. Discipline is doing it despite the circumstances because you understand that it's going to get you towards your long-term goal. Discipline allows consistency. Motivation allows a bunch of ups and downs, hopping into it, hopping out of it, hopping into it, hopping out of it. We cannot rely on motivation to reach long-term goals. We have to get the behavior of discipline and the habit of discipline. Now, discipline becomes much easier when we understand why we're doing the particular behavior, what it's working us towards, and we have that thing that we're working towards that we're excited about, right? That's what gets me up early. I get excited to do these podcasts, to write more, to speak more, to be with more people. Like that gets me excited to be disciplined. In the times of being disciplined, there's times that I'm motivated to not do work and motivated to take some downtime. But what keeps me from doing that is the habit of discipline or the behavior of discipline.
Yeah, I think another way to say it, although, yes, just snaps. Yes, I agree. But another thing I was thinking of is like motivation is almost like present, like kind of narrow-minded of like whatever you're fixated on in that moment. Um I don't want to say like whatever you're feeling in that moment because I don't necessarily think it's always about feeling, but motivation is very much like whatever in that moment, where discipline keeps the full picture.
Yeah.
Because there's times where your motivation and your discipline align. And that, I mean, I think that would
That's
be the
great.
goal,
Yeah.
right? Like we want our motivation and our discipline to be aligned. But when they're not, it takes the discipline to remember the full picture of what your authentic motivation and desire is, what your goal, I guess what your goal is, and that there's times when if your motivation is wavering, the discipline keeps like the full picture in mind.
Yeah. That was beautifully said. And when we break down the root word of discipline, it comes to disciple. And to be a disciple, we have to know what we're working towards in order to get that. So once we have that picture and it's more precise, being a disciple that's being disciplined allows us to keep the picture, especially when things aren't going your way in whatever season that you're in. The discipline to continue to work and understand that delayed gratification is coming is what's going to keep you from going. It's so funny. We talk like motivational speakers, and I'm like, yeah, no, exactly. Like you leave that conference like extremely motivated to move in one direction. But if you're motivated, but you don't have the discipline, then you have to keep going to motivational talks to get motivated again. But you're stuck in the same place because you're not being disciplined to actually do that thing.
Maybe we should start calling them disciplinary speakers.
I was thinking of that, and then I immediately thought of the military, and I immediately thought of like, oh man, people wouldn't want to do that because they'd just be afraid of getting yelled at the whole time. Like, because the other side of discipline is like, oh, discipline is like authority and yelling and being punished, and that's not the angle that we want to take on discipline or discipleship. It's not about being punished. It's not about the suffering that can happen within it, but it's remaining purposeful because you see the full picture. And despite the hardships, you keep moving forward because you want to achieve that particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Drop the mic. Perfect. Well, Sophia, Alec, and Jay, thank you for your awesome questions. We loved these questions, and we love anybody's questions. And so please head over to our website, hopenotnope.org. Go to our Instagram at hopenotnope, or our YouTube channel, again, at hopenotnope. All hope not nope, all of those things. You can DM us, you can email us, you can put on our website the different questions that you have. We love answering questions from fitness, exercise, you know, fitness trends, all of that sort of thing, but also the motivational side of things, leadership, virtue, just life and lifestyle stuff. Like, that's the beauty of this podcast, is it's not just like this one niche down thing. It's the whole purpose of it is to help empower you in all the areas of your life in order for you to become the best person that you can become. So thank you for your questions, and thank you for your future questions that I'm sure we'll be hearing from soon.
Beautifully said. By becoming hope, we become health. By becoming health, we become whole. And that's the goal of this podcast, is that you're getting all these things answered so that you can move towards becoming hope and restoring your health to become whole. Because once we become whole, we become the best version of ourselves. We become the person that sets the example for other people to follow. And that's the goal in this. This is why we research so much and nerd out and try to get out this content, is to guide you to that. Have a great week, and remember, every day is not just a day to be hopeful. It's an opportunity to become hope.